Morning, everyone. Is this okay in terms of volume? Excellent. I'm Jodi Beasley, Senior Director of Community at B Lab US and Canada, and I can't tell you how psyched I am to be in this room. This is why I'm in this role, and it's been too long since we've all been together. I think we've had years of canceled events, of ongoing Zoom calls, and just to be here face-to-face in person is so meaningful to me and to our entire team. You get to see Rose Lavelle on our team all the time. I know she's on the board here, and she's heading up all of our B Local program management, which is phenomenal. But we don't get to do this. And so this quarter marks a really exciting time for us because with all of these build events, we've made a commitment as a community team to get back into the field. The virus is where it's at, we're masking up, we're getting out there, and it just feels incredible. So this quarter, I think, is, cross your fingers, marking a much higher level of visibility for B Lab. We want to be out in the field as much as we can, meeting you, talking about your businesses, figuring out how we can help support you. And so this is hopefully a sea change for us. And I hope these kinds of conversations are on your calendar for the late November when we have our Champions Retreat coming up in Philly. If you don't have tickets, there's a hybrid version, so you could be remote, you could be there, but I can't tell you how excited we all are to have you convene and all of us to be together again. So today, I'd like to give you a little bit of an update. This is just like a joy for me to have so many people in one room. So I'm going to throw a lot of information at you. You're going to get the slides, you're going to get all of the links, and I'm really hoping that I can give you a little bit of an update on what's going on at B Lab, both globally and US and Canada, so that you have a sense of what's coming, where you can plug in, and you can jot down some questions, attack me here at the event so that I can help give some clarity and make you all feel really great about where we're headed. So, next slide, please. A little bit about me. This is my new favorite family photo. This is B Lab US and Canada at our retreat that we had in June on the campus of Haverford College. Just a few months ago, and it was the first time a lot of us had met each other. We did so much hiring, a lot of remote onboarding, and so we're seeing people for the first time, and it was a few days of strategy, of team building, of soul searching. There was some bocce ball involved that got a little overly competitive. There was a lot of dancing, And then 2 days later, there was a lot of COVID. So that's another story. Everyone went home and then uploaded pictures of their test results, but I got to say it was worth it. So that's another story. I can talk about that later. And a little bit about me. So I live in Oakland. I'm part of our 4 B Lab US and Canada member team that's in the Bay Area. So I'm joined by Sarah Silverman, who's our marketing director, Sylvia Lazerna, who you might know. She's our Beehive goddess, and she does a lot around innovation and community work. And then Kylie Nealis, who's here. Kylie, there she is. So Kylie's going to be speaking later. She's our climate program manager, and she's going to be on a panel. So we've got 4 people in the Bay Area, a co-working space that we love, and a little bit of community there. And I was really just drawn to this role at B Lab for a few reasons. So as Wes mentioned, I was the partnerships manager for our CPG division at Fairtrade. And with that, I got to work with food and beverage companies that were really trying to embed ethical and sustainable sourcing into their business model. But I realized over time that the partners I really gravitated to, the ones that were really most committed and most engaged, very much aware of the impact that they could have as a business, they were already B Corps. And I realized in my next role, I want to get closer to this community. That was important for me, just to be a part of that energy and a part of that positivity. And I also, next slide, please. There we go, thank you. I understand the challenges of a for-profit business, so I spent about a decade in food and beverage innovation, working with marketers, product developers, innovation leads to help them figure out where could their brand go, where are trends going, and how can they leverage those trends to be relevant to consumers in the future. And I realized how hard it was to turn the ship, how to get senior leadership on board for new ideas, how to get buy-in. And I realized that B Corp certification is often something that happens with one visionary, and then it has to circulate up through the organization or down through the organization, whatever it might be, and that takes a lot of work. So I can appreciate that. And so I thought I could bring to this role an understanding of the hurdles you have to deal with every day. Next slide, please. And then before that, I was in advertising, so worked for J. Walter Thompson, which is probably not around anymore, or very, very small presence. But I understood the power of clear and compelling messaging, of really connecting with your audience and creating communities that are going to be champions for your business. And that's what this is all about. And so I'm hoping to really bring that focus to my role here at the community team. Next slide, please. Okay, so I joined at a kind of crazy time. So this is the number of B Corps from 2012. And you can kind of see the curve has kind of become a vertical line at this point. It's getting pretty close to that. Next slide, please. So when we think about this growth in the world, this is kind of our global org chart, or our family photo. So I just kind of wanted to share B Lab Global is our central organization. They sit in the middle, and they interact with our global leadership team, which are the CEOs and lead executives of like B Lab US and Canada or other global partners. And there's been so much growth and activity. If you take a look at B Lab EU, B Lab UK, they have about 2,000 B Corps between the two of them. So when you take a look at how big the US and Canada is, they're about the size of US and Canada, and that's tremendous growth. And then there are some country partners. So these are developing groups. They're in the smaller circles. And those are growing fast and furious, and they are passionate and excited, and they're really pushing us to be innovative and to be creative in building community. Next slide, please. And this is our dream team from lead executive level in all of our different country and global partners. And our newish CEO, Jorge Fontanez, upper left for you, he joined us about a year ago. I think he spoke to you last year and talked about our theory of change in the virtual program. So now he's leading B Lab US and Canada to help lead the charge as our organization's evolving. Next slide, please. And then this is all of you. So I've got a couple of slides of all of your business logos that Rose helped put together. So here in the US and Canada region, we are incredibly impressed what's happening here at B Local PDX. As you mentioned earlier, that you are a vanguard and you are the Zamboni leading and clearing the ice for others to come and innovating. And you've got 150 members across a really varied set of categories and certification tenures, incredible programming, supportive consultants that you're providing for folks, the dynamicness of your volunteers. It's a lot to be admired. Next slide, please. And I'm excited to meet as many of you as I can today. I'm gonna really try to work the room. Please come up to me or to Rose or to Kylie. Tell us what you're excited about, what you're working on, and how we can help you be more successful with your impact. Okay, next slide, please. So since we're talking about member companies and part of our B Corp community, since January of 2020, it has been a tsunami of applications. We had 6,000 applications. So at that point, a 4,500 partner community with 6,000 people knocking at the door was incredibly exciting and incredibly overwhelming. We hit 5,000 in May, right around Cinco de Mayo, and now we're at about 58, 52 as of yesterday. So it's exponential growth. It's happening fast and furious. I think I charted about 138 new B Corps per month globally are coming on board. And the applications are coming in fast and furious. But it's not just certification. We've had 200,000 people engage with the B Impact Assessment and 25,000 with our SDG Action Manager. So it's giving us the motivation to take a really hard look at our data. So our community's growing. Who's in the community? Who's growing? Who's contracting? what are your business makeups, and then how do we adjust our programs accordingly? So next slide, please. Bottom line is our data says our community is incredibly varied, but extremely loyal. So globally, the community has grown to about 31 publicly traded B Corps right now. But what's interesting is half of our community has a revenue of less than $1 million. 34% have revenue of less than $500,000. And only a small percent, about 3%, have revenue of over 100 million. That may change in the next year, but this is just kind of a moment in time, and we're trying to look at trend data right now. We're super proud to say that attrition is really low. 98 to 99% of our community recertifies every 3 years, which is really high. We want to keep that high. Next slide, please. But we're also seeing that our community is much less diverse than we'd like, and marginalized voices have less presence. So today, women-owned businesses make up only 37% of our US and Canada B Corp community. 5% are LGBTQIA, only 3.8% are immigrant-owned. You can see the stats here. So we're really looking to level the playing field for businesses who have historically marginalized ownership. Next slide, please. And because we know we don't all start from the same place, we've created a level program that partners our Black, Indigenous, people of color organizations that are women-led with consultants to help them get into the community and certify. And we've learned that they feel that without that program, they would never be able to have certified, and that the program's incredibly valuable, and that they don't see their lived experiences reflected in our standard. So this is something that we're taking away as we think about how our standard is going to evolve. We need to do a lot better. Next slide, please. And for our B Corps that qualify, we have an equity discount you can apply for your first 3 years of certification of 40% off the annual fees. If you didn't do it your first time around and you think you'd qualify, we can talk to you about not putting that in place for your next recert. But that is helpful as well. And it's also not enough. We're really trying to work with our global partners, primarily in Australia and New Zealand, to think about what else should we be doing to work with our micro Bs? How do we rethink community engagement and certification in a way that's really going to honor the time and the expense of certification for those that might not have the resources? Next slide, please. And this is my beautiful team. So we had about 4 people until a few months ago, and we've exploded, and we needed to explode. So we've got 2,000 plus B Corps to talk with and love and manage, and so now this team has expanded. Michelle Reed at the corner is working with us with a partnership with BDC in Canada. She's based in Vancouver and deals with our Canadian B Corps the most, and Karen Lichtig, I think you probably may know. She's also a dynamo and is helping us with our climate work and with Champions Retreat. So both of those are tangentially involved with our community team, but you'll start to see these faces and hopefully see their emails and their voices in the coming months. Next slide, please. And so our structure has changed. So earlier this year, B Lab US and Canada became our own global partner. So we used to share an office space, staff, priorities with B Lab Global, and we realized we needed to be our own entity to focus just on our geographic area. But it's been great, it's been empowering, and now we need to staff up. So we really need to make sure that we've got the HR or the people and culture, the operations and the certification and recertification team members that we had previously shared with B Lab Global. So now we are our own distinct family. And with that, next slide please. I hope this isn't news to most of you, but there was an annual fee pricing update that hit in July of this year. And there's lots of links in this deck that you'll be able to get later, but I just kind of wanted to overview that we really tried our best to push the annual fee increase as late as we could. We were going to do it in 2020. We decided to wait because of the pandemic, and we've really been operating in a deficit for a while. So this was a requirement for us to be financially viable moving forward and to adapt to the growth of the community. So what we started to see was a new minimum price, and this is a $2,000 US or Canada minimum price for newly certified B Corps, not our existing, newly certified B Corps with a revenue of under 5 million. We then updated fees for existing B Corps with annual revenue over 20 million. This happened in July, as well as some new scoping and verification fees that came out. And then for our B Corps at the largest side, over $1 billion, their annual fees went from 50 to between 60,000 or $1 million. And so those were phone conversations that we had to have, and that community has stepped up to support us incredibly. We pushed our smallest or lower revenue B Corp fee increase to 2024. And we're looking now at different ways to even manage that working relationship. So we're having conversations internally. We wanted to give the space for that, for planning, and also make sure that our most impacted B Corps had the most time to deal with that fee increase and that we could potentially have another path forward by that time. So stay tuned there. Next slide, please. So what do you get for that? So this is just a little bit of a list of where those fees are being applied. So it's staffing growth, it's verification and standards fees from B Lab Global, it's our tech platform, so the Beehive, our Salesforce and Tableau, all of the tech that allows us to work with you efficiently. Licensing fees, so you can use the seal, and then every thing that we're doing from a program perspective to build local and global movement building. So there's a lot happening there that is really funded and important with this fee increase. Next slide, please. And then this is a topic that Eleanor Allen, our new global lead executive, has taken on as her primary cause, and this is to reduce our wait times, both for new certifications as well as for research. So we partnered with Ganeshtim, it's an outside B Corp partner of ours, to bring on new analysts. We're going to continue to bring on new analysts, 10 to 15 per quarter, I believe, through the end of this year and 2023. So you're going to start to see those wait times come down. But it's super important that we all agree that we don't want to rubber stamp anything. We want to give the same attention to a recert that we did to the initial cert. You put a lot of time into this application. We want to make sure that the certification has the integrity and the trust that we work so hard to achieve. But we do see that it's a real pain point. Next slide, please. And finally, you're going to start to hear a lot about the new standard that's being developed. And this has been in the works since 2020. We have been meeting with subject matter experts, with our Standards Advisory Council. We're now at a point where we have a draft for you to review. And you should have received an email with a lot of links to it. If not, it's in the back of this deck. We're asking from, September 25th through November 15th, there's this open consultation period. So make a pot of coffee, sit down with this standard. Your voices are the most important to raise up. And I also want to explain, if you can go to the next slide, you're going to have a very long on-ramp to these new standards. I can imagine there'd be some anxiety of, am I going to still qualify? How's the point system going to work? What do I need to do to change, if anything, systems within my organization? You are probably going to have, from what I'm hearing at this point, 1 to 2 certification cycles to transfer over to this new standard. It's not going to be a garage door slamming down and everyone scrambling. And we as a B Lab organization are going to work really closely with you to map the current standard to the new and figure out how we need to support you with content and bring you along so everyone feels capable and confident and has resources to manage this. So there's a survey that the link is here. Please read the standard if you can. Share your thoughts with us so that your voice can be heard. And we will then incorporate the changes and do this again in 2023. So there'll be a couple of rounds of consultation for you all to weigh in on. Next slide, please. So when we think about what the community team is focusing on, I just want to say it's this. This gathering this opportunity to create relationships, to connect, this is where we see the important work happening and the change catalyzing. So our networks, the B locals, industry-specific networks, role-specific networks, all of these are where we're going to be focusing as a community team to really have a bigger presence, to find out what you need to be more successful, to help you drive with membership, because you are our feet on the ground, and I think the most effective way that we're going to move towards collective action. Next slide, please. So please continue, one more. Continue to engage with each other. Please log on to the Beehive, subscribe to our newsletters, keep your contact information updated so we know how we can reach you. Join these networks if you're not in one. Come to Champions Retreat, engage with our new standard. This is really going to help us connect with you and help our joint objectives move forward. So I just want to close this next slide by thanking you for all that you're doing. Thank you for making time for me today and welcoming me here, and then asking you to please come find me. Let's talk about any questions that you have, and we're really excited to be more visible and in person moving forward. So thanks so much.